far.
That extra gear, the first 3 steps.
Huge strides in the performance.
That I might not be the player I am today.
All right, welcome to another episode of Behind the Gear, and today we have the pleasure of sitting with Jason Bukala, the director of amateur scouting with the Florida Panthers, been in the NHL for quite a few years, and took the roundabout way to get to the NHL. Hey, but kind of going back, Books, where would home be for you? So someone came up to you on the street and said, "Hey, buddy, where were you born and raised? Where's home for you?"
So born in Sudbury.
The Rock.
The Rock, yeah. It's The Rock's changed a lot over the years.
Big time. Yeah, it's my hometown. It's a crazy. Every time I go up there, it's a new. It's
actually
unbelievable.
incredible how many people come from the North Sudbury area.
Just the good people. That's right. That's right.
Well, in Florida, we've got Derek McKenzie.
Yeah.
Andrew Burnett. Macker just
100%.
retired as our captain, and then Bruno's come on as an assistant coach this year. So
that's awesome.
We're taking it over.
Yeah.
These guys from
You know what, man? I used to play. So when I was young, like junior, then kind of went to college, Bruno would be back in the summers and playing. We had a league down there. It was awesome. Like all the guys would be playing that played pro, Savage and all these guys, right?
Yeah.
And we'd go out there as young guys just to fill spots. And I remember having the puck, him stripping me. I went to grab it. He's just lightly sauced it over my stick, grabbed it on the other side. And I was quick, so I caught him again. He was not a good skater.
Fast. No.
I think he did it to me 3 times, maybe looked ridiculous, but his hands were unbelievable and the way he thought the game. And for young guys like us watching that, just like, he was impressive. And then when then you kind of take to him. So then I'm watching him in the NHL when he's in Minnesota and stuff and I loved watching him play, and he could bury pucks, and he had a hard time getting there, but when he got there, he finished, and he was unreal.
He was one of those guys that held on for a long time.
Yeah, he played a long time. Man.
As the game evolved, his element still stuck true, and he's such a great human being, coachable. He knew what he was, right? And coaches knew what he was. You have to get in the right environment with the right coach in the league now, and he was able to do that. Coaches knew what he could bring, and ridiculous hands, big body.
Yeah.
He's a big body.
Totally,
so
yeah.
If he gets body position and uses those mitts, it's pretty tough to negotiate them.
No, definitely, man. So born and raised Sudbury, and then
guys born and raised in Sudbury. Yeah, so I came down here when came to London when I guess I was around 8 or 9. So, still go back to Sudbury. Still have a camp up there.
Cool.
Actually, I shouldn't say that I have a camp. My wife's family have a camp. Coincidentally. I met her here in London, but coincidentally they had a camp in Sudbury,
really?
which is crazy. But anyways, been in London since around 1980 and make it home. Love it here. It's great. It's great for my job.
No, for sure.
Yeah, it's great for my job. Great for the kids. It's got a lot to offer here.
Yeah.
It's been great.
No, definitely. You mentioned camp, and that's what we call camp. And then when I moved south, everyone's like, "Oh, I say I got camp," and they're like, "Cottage?" I'm like, it's a camp, but but down here everything's cottage. We just had this conversation the other night with another family. We're like, "Yeah, we bought a camp out in Antigonish. My wife's from Nova Scotia. We got crazy deal on this little piece of property in the water, and call it camp." And they're like, "No, it's cottage." I'm like, "No, it's a camp, man. There's an outhouse. There's
That's exactly what we have indoor plumbing now, but we still have the outhouse.
Oh yeah,
and the outhouse gets used more than the indoor plumbing. So the Skokas, those are cottage 100%.
Homes. Those are unbelievable.
Where we're talking about up there on the water on the island, that's a camp.
Exactly. Yeah. Where are you guys, on Manitoulin?
No, we're on Wanapitei.
Okay, yeah.
So just out past the airport, skied.
Yeah.
And those guys are on the same lake, Mackenzie, and
cool.
Burnett Fish is out there as well.
Yeah.
So
it's great.
It's
nice to get up there, eh?
Oh yeah. The stress just bleeds right off.
Yeah.
I mean, the drive up there from down here has gotten it's not the best, but it's gotten so much easier.
What's a 2-lane? Yeah, it's way better.
It was a 2-lane forever, as you know. 69 was like a death trap.
Yeah, it was unreal.
You get an accident on 69, you might as well just pull over and sleep your day away.
It's
now
so true,
they got 4
man.
lanes, and it's almost 4 lanes all the way up.
It's
great.
It's really good, man. And then played obviously minor hockey here, and then we were just talking a little bit before we got on the air, but just about playing junior, and you had a chance to play in St. Mary's, obviously, and played with some names, man, back in the day.
Yeah, we had I had a little cup of coffee in Stratford to start. So long story short, I was drafted by the Sioux out of Banting High School here in London.
Yeah.
Luke Williams, who has since passed, outstanding human being, but Donnie Boyd was the head coach. Teddy Nolan was the assistant coach.
No way.
In Sault Ste. Marie, and Luke was the chief scout. anyways, I got drafted out of Banting High School. High school hockey back then in this city especially didn't have any boundaries. So you had all the, when I say boundaries, all the AAA kids were free to play high school hockey. And it was pretty elite. We had high-end players. We had 8 or 9 guys who went on to play junior and university hockey. Steve Ruchin,
I was going to say Ruch was in that mix too, right? Because Banting always had a good team back then.
Yeah, so Ruch was on the team, and his career speaks for itself. But anyways, from there I went to Stratford, had a brief stop, and they had made a summertime deal, I guess, and I ended up in St. Mary's. And what a great experience. St. Mary's, I played there for 3.5 years. Went back there as a coach and then a coach GM later on in my career. But outstanding town. I was just recently there at a golf tournament and did a little bit of a speech at the end, and it's really cool to see the familiar faces, and it's a tough go. Junior hockey's a tough go in small communities in this province, especially with the way it's aligned now. But they persevere and they love it up there. But we had some really good players, and we had 8 or 9 guys that went on Division I scholarships off of our team back then, and it was different. Nowadays, I'm not so sure that all the kids are getting what you would classify as a full ride to go down south, where you have to be extremely elite to make it happen. The U.S. market and even the European market has opened up for college players, and especially the U.S. model. Obviously, they're grooming their own players. It's cheaper to get an American kid to go play. But we had 8 or 9 guys. Steve Shields I was a goalie. Steve Shields was the other goalie. He went to Michigan. But I had a good run there. I was heavily recruited by some pretty big schools, and the one thing that I didn't do well growing up was I got caught up, I think, a little bit too much in the hype of the moment. It's not just about stopping pucks and practicing hard. It is about that. It's always about that. But my off ice, my conditioning, my eating habits, my sleeping habits, my schooling. Definitely my workout regime. I ended up having both knees, redone here in London. We're lucky here. He had the Valor Clinic.
Oh, for sure.
Dr. Miniachi, who's now, I think he's a Cleveland Browns surgeon now, but Miniachi worked on me here. And so it was kind of karma in a negative way, but a wake-up call for me, because by the time my knees got really bad and I'd had 2 or 3 surgeries, the ship had sailed. Really, it had. My preparation wasn't good enough, and I got what I deserved. I really did. So, woke up one day when I was 20 years old, and I was done playing junior hockey. And what do you want to do now? And got to make some money. So I went to work at UPS full time. It was my first full time job.
There you go.
Yeah,
in the back.
I was in the office. I was a clerk actually, and then I worked my way through there. I had the gift of the gab, so I don't know. I worked my way through the office. And, but I got right into coaching right away.
Okay.
Started in minor hockey, and
so you'd been like 20, 21, started
20 years old. I was the head coach, and I started in Oak Ridge minor hockey.
Yeah.
Bob Stark, another legend in the city.
Yeah.
We've just recently passed, but Bob, I went to him. I said, I want to get into it. And he said, absolutely. He gave me the major bantam team, and I was 20 years old. So how old would those kids been? Like 14, 15?
Yeah, they're rated not far from you.
Not far from
when you
me.
Look at it now,
yeah. When I look back on it, but it was actually good because it was pretty relatable. Those kids were in high school.
Yeah.
I could kind of share some stories.
Probably loved you, like just because you're so you're right removed from playing practice. You're probably ripping around, firing.
I got involved. I
sure.
got involved in the practices, and even strapped the gear on a couple of times.
Oh yeah,
because they're all pretty cocky, and that was kind of fun. But
for sure.
Anyways, I got right into it when I was 20, and then I was fortunate to hook on to Oak Ridge High School, and Vaughn Peckham was the head coach. And I started off just helping him out. So I was doing the major bantam team, and then I started doing the Oak Ridge High School team, helping out with the goalies, just doing the goalie coach. And then I worked into, more. And then Vaughn just came to me one summer. I was like 23, and he said, I just want to do volleyball. Like, I don't want to, do the hockey anymore. And would you like to take it over? And I was kind of taken aback because I'm not a faculty guy. Like, I'm from the outside. But obviously, I I said yes, and we had a dinner with a couple of the other teachers to make sure. I wanted to make sure they were okay with that.
Yeah, right.
Because
Yeah.
they're going to have to put up with me as
Yeah.
being me. So it was a great opportunity. I went from that to Lucan Junior Development, and I was there for 4 years. And we had really good teams. We won the division championships 3 years in a row, all Ontario's one year.
Yeah.
And that got me to St. Mary's. And then in St. Mary's, I was Johnny Calderosi was there before me. Johnny, he's a legend here locally.
Sure, yeah.
Well, what he's done in minor hockey.
Yeah, he's tons, man.
It's unbelievable.
Years and years
of commitment. And, this guy, he could write a book, right?
For sure.
Johnny, that was a tough one because Johnny got let go and I went in and took over for Johnny. And he wasn't dealt a very good hand. The team was poor when he got there. It had nothing to do with him. It was just, the way it was. Anyways, we worked hard. We worked hard to turn it around. And then I ended up leaving there. I got into just a little bit of a situation with the executive at that time in St. Mary's. And they were really needy. They were just hands-on all the time. And
just tough.
It was tough.
Yeah.
And they got to the point where my staff were thinking about leaving and, and it became a drag, and it affected me every day because they wouldn't ever leave you alone. This is like the beginning of cell phones, so you're doing a lot of faxing and regular phone calls and stuff like that. So
fax machine. What's a fax machine?
Fax machine. You have to fax things into the office.
Oh,
Remember game sheets and stuff? Fax a game sheet into the OHA office for suspension.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I ended up leaving in my third year there, right around Christmas time. I resigned, and it was better. It was just it was tough. It was really tough. It was a tough decision because I loved it, and I was all in. But it just felt like it was something that I had to do. So a nervous decision, right? You don't know what's going to happen next. But lucky for me, I had made some really good relationships in the Western Junior B League, and Dave Torrey was in Chatham as the owner, GM coach, everything of the Maroons. And he got the GM job in Sault Ste. Marie.
Oh, okay.
So then he hired me as a director of player personnel with the Greyhounds. And so I was 4 years with the Greyhounds, and we had a great run. Like, Craig Hartsburg came back from Philly, and Jeff Carter was there, and Kyle Kajewski from here, from London goalie. He was their goalie. And anyways, then I got my first job in the NHL, but I was 33 years old. That's a long story. There's a journey involved in there, but
it's a good 13 years from when you stopped playing to.
It's like an apprenticeship that never ended.
Yeah.
You go from being heavily recruited to be a college player, and then you never know.
Yeah.
To waking up and saying to yourself, you really messed that up. What are you going to do? 13 years later, 13.
Right.
Yeah. You're in the NHL.
Made the show. You made the show.
Made the NHL. So now I'm 14 years in, and I'm happy to be there. I'm very lucky. Very lucky.
Now going back to kind of playing junior B, and I had an opportunity to play back then. It's a lot different than it was now. Like you got not necessarily paid to play, but all your stuff was covered. You got pretty well set up and things like that. He played with some good players, obviously, like Shieldsy, another goaltender who went on to play in the NHL. Mm-hmm. But going through that process of being a good goaltender, splitting time with him, getting some good runs, as far as getting games in and stuff, getting recruited, and then that not happening. A lot of your buddies going on to play college and going on to play major junior and things like that. When that didn't happen and you kind of swallowed that pill, like, was it your dad kind of giving it to you? Was it you just realizing, man, I kind of maybe messed this up? Or was there any kind of like epiphany where you're like, man, I had it and I lost it?
It was personal. Actually, it was personal. It wasn't, my dad didn't need to tell me that. I think at that point, your family is more concerned about what you're going to do next. They're parents first, and sports are great. And, they all hope that you're going to do well in sports. Some parents get misguided and they think that the sport owes the athlete, but it's really in reverse, right? The athlete owes the sport. And I think at that point, your parents, or my parents anyways, were, what's next on the horizon. And with that, they let me be, but it was my own personal decision to wake up, because involved in that process, like when I talk about it being an apprenticeship that never ends, like you're holding down a real job, here. And I was lucky because a lot of the people I worked for in London, Jeff Van Vliet at Above the Promotions, I was in a sportswear gig.
Yeah.
Jeff's a hockey guy, and Mark, his son, played for me in St. Mary's actually, and then I was at New Era Graphics, and those guys are all
the Poolins,
they're athletics, so I was fortunate that I aligned myself with people that understood where I was going, what I really wanted to do besides my real job.
Yeah.
So it was always get the job done, and we understand, and we'll support you with this other stuff. So, but the day I'd be lying if I told you any differently. Like I just woke up one day in the summertime. I think I was working at Huron Hockey School that summer up in Huron Park, and the school ended, and I was 20 or 21, whatever I was, and I wasn't going to a camp. I was done.
Yeah.
And it's like, you love it. You love this environment. You love the people. What are you going to do? And I don't think I was mature enough to say it to myself that way in my mind, but subconsciously I just hit the ground running. I said, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Now, when you were 20, 21, 22, did you always have kind of a goal of one day coaching the NHL or one day being a scout or being a GM or something? Was there always kind of a goal of like, man, one day I want to try to get to probably, originally the OHL and then the NHL, but was there always kind of a goal in the back of your mind of like, one day I want to make this career? So I wasn't going to allow myself not to push myself to the extreme. And the NHL is where I wanted to be. Yeah.
So it never occurred to me that I wanted to be a coach in the NHL. I definitely wanted to be on the management side. I wanted to be, on the scouting side. The guys that played for me in Lucan, again, because I was so young, 24, 25, 26, whatever I was, they still come over to my place now for a beer or something, and they recall that I was telling them back then that I'm going to be here in my career in the next 10 years. Where are you guys going to be? Like it's only junior development hockey, but what are you going to do? So I was young enough to teach them some life lessons, but at the same time tell them exactly where I was going. So I never took my eye off the prize. As soon as I said it, I was
you're screwed. You got to make it happen now.
Yeah. And you got to have an understanding wife at home who's going to allow you to be gone a lot.
For sure.
My 19-year-old now, almost 20, Kian, when he was a year old, I was pretty much gone every night, because you work and then you're at the rinks and you're doing whatever you're doing, especially when you take on the GM title, because now you're taking on recruiting and everything else too. So, you got to have a lot of support around you, but I never took my eye off the prize. I was going to get there.
Good for you. No, it's cool. Cause I think that's one of the biggest things is everyone has this dream of playing in the NHL. They're doing, and that's obviously very difficult to do as a player, let alone management or scouting. It's almost just as hard. Right. And I think, having that goal and setting that goal, and even for young kids that maybe they are okay at hockey, but maybe that management role, because I'm sure you have buddies that wouldn't be good at the scouting, wouldn't be good at the management part, but be unreal coaches, right? So knowing kind of what you are and how you fit into the puzzle, I think is another big thing, because some guys are snowed that I think I'm going to be a great coach. No, you're not that good of a coach, buddy. Like maybe look at something else, No,
you're exactly right. I mean, if you look at my job now, like when you first get to the NHL, like I remember, I worked for Nashville first, and David Poyle, really outstanding leader. He's commands the room, but he commands it his own way, and he's very stoic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's almost. Where now I'm with Dale Talon, who's the exact opposite. He's animated. He's he loves to scout. David didn't like to scout. You learn about people every step of the way and how they make their organizations work. But when I first got to Nashville and I sat in that room, I thought, this is great. I made it. You know what I mean? Like I'm happy. Like I don't have to have anything else.
Yeah.
And then things progress from there. And, now if you look at the league, we have 31 teams and I'm one of the 31 directors of scouting in the NHL. Well, when I first started the journey, I would never have ever said that's what I'm going to be. I mean, that's an impossibility. So when you talk about people that you think that would be good coaches and all this, I mean, there's not enough good coaches,
right?
But there's tons that think they are great coaches.
For sure, yeah. Yeah.
And it's right. It's here in this city. It's in Toronto. It's everywhere. That disease exists all over the place. And I'm not undermining it. I'm not saying that there aren't, good.
No, I get what you're saying.
There's really good people who think they're great coaches, but they're better people than coaches.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how it all evolves. And now in the NHL, you've got a lot of ex-players who are getting involved in either coaching or management. So if you think back to like when you and I were growing up type thing, there was a lot of there was less retired players that were getting into, like a general manager who was an ex-player. You didn't really hear that.
No, it's true. Yeah.
Things have changed. So.
Yeah. Which makes it more difficult, I think, for guys like you or I who don't have those NHL games or that NHL experience or that, that pedigree to get into the gig sometimes now, because there are these ex-NHL guys that are going to get that opportunity probably over someone like you or I nowadays, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to accept that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, totally. Yeah.
The people who don't accept it, or the people who have, think that they need to get from A to H, like right away in their hockey career. That's not the way it works. Like, you get in that room and it's just like all the hard work starts all over again. And you have to lay your own kind of roadmap to success. In Florida now, like, we've got Chris Pronger and Brian McCabe. So Prongs is the assistant to the GM. Caber's the director of player personnel. Who's Jason Bukala to overtake Chris Pronger and Brian McCabe? I mean, a little bit of reality check.
Yeah.
So you accept where you are. You work as hard as you can. And I'm I don't want what they want anyways.
Right.
They want. They're programmed differently. To your point, those guys are programmed differently.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I don't need that. So.
Yeah. And I mean, like, whenever you look at like where you are now, and then let's say where you were at 21 years old, which a lot of kids go through at 14. We got kids that just got drafted to the NHL this summer, right? Well, okay, now they're thinking the NHL is right there, but there's a lot of steps in between getting drafted out of the OHL or junior, wherever it is, to and I think for you, like, if you look back on it, at the time you're probably just going through these steps, but when you look back on it, like, there's a way to get to the NHL if you want to do it, right? There's a lot of different things that have to happen, get lucky a little bit, get to know some people, and there's so many steps in creating and building that career, right? And even for these young players, it's, if you want to go from AA to AAA, there's steps to be taken. You don't just jump. The odd kid gets that opportunity maybe, but for the most part, there's work to be done in between there in order to get that next level and continue to build that career, whether you're a player, GM, scout, director of scouting, it doesn't matter, right?
It's so true. I mean, you get to see it firsthand because you're fortunate, or the players here in London are fortunate to have, someone like you who works with them. And what you have is a mixed bag of athletes. You have guys that are, coming out of university hockey or going to university hockey. You have a junior kid, and then you have like a high-end pro, and they all skate on the same ice surface. We have a draft here in London, who I'm extremely proud of. And, Josh Brown, I know that you work with him.
Yeah.
If you look at Brownie's path to where he is now, he's a perfect example of what it takes if you're not elite every step of the way. He's a poster child for hard work and perseverance and focus and determination and taking care of yourself and being a good human being and, all those things.
For sure, yeah. It checks all the boxes, right?
Checks all the boxes,
Yeah.
So... it was hard for him to break into Oshawa. He ended up going back to Tier 2, missed some time with the big team. But at the end of the day in Oshawa, he was the captain of the team, and they won the Memorial Cup.
Yeah, it's huge.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could stop the story right there. He's already light years ahead of what most kids can accomplish.
Totally,
right?
Yeah.
But then we draft him, and the journey begins. Well, he's up and down the East Coast League a little bit for his first couple of years. He's got to work on his agility. Without going into a bunch of detail, all the things that you work with him with, not dust the puck off too much, make a quicker first pass, all the little things that he had to do to get better as a player. He did. He bought in. He said, this is what I got to do. So he spends time in the American League, and now 4 years later, he's on his third contract now, or second or third contract with us in Florida. But he's an NHL player now. He's, he played half a year last year.
Which is unbelievable. Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
It's awesome. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And he's a 6th-round draft. So you get those guys who figured it out and they learn to persevere, So if I look at myself and my career path, I didn't have what Josh Brown has. You know what I mean? And there's lots of kids here just in the city of London who are better players than what Josh Brown was at the same time. But what he has is all those other tangibles that take him to another level. What happens most of the time, and I say that very truthfully, most of the time is either the parent group or the kid himself gets in his own way and he forgets how to get from A to Z. He thinks that along the way that people owe him something to get him there.
Yeah.
It's not that way, man.
Yeah.
we live in this bubble in London, and we're really fortunate. We got a lot of good athletes here, good players and whatever. But it's just like a little speck on the radar. Like it's it's a world game.
I think like to your point about London, like when the parents are coming up now, they're like, well, Kadri played here, Doughty played. Like, there's a lot of NHL guys that either played here or played for the Knights. So it's like, look at all the NHL guys. Like it's easy. You just got to work hard. You got to be over 6 feet, whatever they're in their mind they have. Like, and I get parents come up to me like, yeah, my kid's 8. He's really good. Like he's one of the best 8-year-olds in London. I'm like, relax, man. Like there's so much more to life than 8 years old. Like give them a minute and let's see everyone catch up to them. And some of these kids that are good, like give them credit. Looking at a kid like a Konechny or, some of these guys, we're always good, but they put the work in, man. Like they put the work in,
Travis is another glowing example. He's like a Josh Brown, except that he was elite all the way through. So like Konechny, he's a bulldog. Like Konechny's going to make it on skill and ability. Like he would get a cup of coffee based on his skill set and his ability.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, because he's that good.
Yeah.
But what guys like Konechny do is they take what they already have and they go to another level because they're programmed that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like my kids play baseball. That's their primary sport.
Yeah.
Okay. My older boy's on a baseball scholarship in the States. My younger boy plays competitive baseball here in London. He plays hockey as a secondary thing. He loves both sports. He loves hockey too, my younger guy. And my older boy played hockey.
Yeah.
But what they decided to do along the line, even though they're, especially the older one, he played junior nights for a year, was he didn't want to be a hockey guy. He loved his baseball.
Yeah.
I wasn't ever the parent, and neither was his mom, to look at him and say, well, because it's easy here. It's easy to say, well, you're 10, you're a really good athlete. You're 12, you're a really good athlete. You should be really pushing this hockey thing. I mean, understand that when those people come up to you and they talk like that, it's asinine. It's crazy talk.
Trust me. Yeah.
It's a world game. And by the time they're, they haven't even started growing hair on their armpits yet. Their body types are going to change. Some are going to be big. Some are going to be small. Some are going to lose interest. Some might get injured. I mean, there's so much.
Some might get a girlfriend or boyfriend.
Done, right? Whatever. Who cares? I mean,
Yeah.
whatever happens, right?
Yeah.
But let them be.
Yeah.
Let them be.
Do you think though, you as a guy, who's been involved in hockey, obviously your whole life as far as playing, coaching, and then, when you had your first, child, you kind of got into that OHL, then NHL gig. Do you think that you look at it a lot differently now because you've seen so many kids come through that you're like, that kid, you kind of maybe saw it, that kid is not our best player, but he's probably going to play the most amount of hockey just because he works hard. He's got a good attitude, good parents.
100%.
And, I know for me, I think, I joke around all the time about, I think every parent's passionate. We all love our kids. We all got a bit of crazy in us. We all want what's best for our kids. If you can hide it the best, then you're the least amount crazy, right? So my kids are young, but I'm kind of like taking the approach of, I'm competitive, you're competitive. Yeah, I'd like to see my kid be the best at basketball or whatever it is, but you having fun, bud? Yeah. You know what? You worked really hard. Love it. Keep going. Let's try this sport out. Let's try this sport out. And even just chatting to you earlier on, like you got a very laid back approach with your boys. Like if you want to play baseball, play baseball. No problem. I'll drive you. I'll hang out, as long as you're putting an effort in, that's great. And same thing with hockey. But I feel like for Kian, I'm sure for him, he's the one driving the car. You're not the one saying, buddy, we got to go hit balls. Buddy, we got to go out and throw some, take some grounders.
So that's what happens. I mean, too many times the parent drives the bus early and they press and they press and they press. And you have to ask yourself the question in reflection, like when my kid's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever I'm just spitballing. Are you doing it because you want to do it, or are they doing it because they want to do it? Or are they doing it because they know you want them to do it? And, for the baseball, like we were talking earlier, it's not easy for a Canadian kid. Now, we're blessed here in London. Like we had the London Badger program with Mike Lumley, and we have the Great Lake program, with Chris Robinson and Adam Stern. It's an elite program. Yeah. But in those programs there, like, my boy, and I think this is something that all parents should understand. He was never elite or the best at anything until he was about 15 or 16 at that level.
Sure.
Okay. Like he was never there. And, it frustrated me. The thing that would frustrate me the most, and I'm like any other parent, I had a few discussions with coaches, because you almost have to get in front. You almost have to get in front of conversations with coaches because other parents are in their ears all the time.
Yeah.
And they have to understand that you don't want to be that parent, but you don't want your son or daughter to be overlapped by a parent because they're in your ear all the time. So their kid, it's kind of delicate, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be the hard ass, but at the same time, you want to, be present. But the beauty of the process is sooner or later, the kid takes over. And as soon as the kid takes over and he's watching his diet, he's in the gym, he's working out, he's doing all this stuff on his own. That's when you just, all you can do is hope that they love the game and then have the one singular expectation is that on your worst day, and, and I scout like this too, like if I can find out about a kid this way, on your worst day, you failed an exam, you broke up with your girlfriend, you got the flu, you're feeling on your way, but you perform at a high level. You know what I mean? Like you make yourself known. If on your worst day, so that tells you they're competitive and they can persevere, as long as they love it and they compete and they learn how to persevere a little bit, the rest will take care of itself if they're good enough.
Yeah.
But you can't necessarily make them good enough. There's certain things that they can come skate with you, Blazer, and their edges are going to improve and their explosiveness and whatever you guys are working on. But if they don't figure it out on their own between their ears, it doesn't matter because all you're doing is tinkering with the engine. Sure. You know what I mean? Yeah. They still got to put the keys in the ignition. So,
and I think I think the biggest thing that I notice now is looking at a kid like a Brownie or Connecting these, a lot of the Kraus, all these guys, they're mentally tough. So they got skill. They've got, you put all those kids together, take top 500 kids in North America. They're all skilled. They're all good. They can all skate. They can all edge. But what's going to separate those 500 to the top 50 is who can overcome, play good when they have the flu and not be like, Mom, I can't go today. I'm just going to shut her down today. Where that other kid's like, I'm going, I don't care, I'm playing. And like that mental toughness to me is a big, big part of what separates athletes in any sport, especially with hockey or baseball or anything like that. Like, and how do you teach that? Like as a parent, how do you teach that? And I mean, you've got more experience in this than I do, and you've got a kid playing at a very, very high level. I'll give you my 2 cents. So my 2 cents is let these kids talk for themselves. Let these kids overcome obstacles that you know the answer to. I know the answer to, but you know what? No, that door's not going to work, but let's see him try it.
So Kean, going back a long time ago, and I think it probably resonates with him subconsciously to this day. When he was playing minor novice hockey, so this is before junior nights, even before they're old.
Yeah, so he'd be like 7, 8 years old. Yeah,
7, 8 years old, and he went out in Oak Ridge. He tried out for the A team, I guess you would call it, or the travel team, whatever it is, whatever they call it. He was the last cut, and I went in the room with him for the last cut, and I physically told him that. You thank all the coaches, you shake their hand, and we walk out of there. He knew he was getting cut before we walked in, type of thing.
Yeah.
And he did. He said, "Thank you for the opportunity." He's young, he's just a little boy.
Awesome.
Right?
I love it.
He's a little boy.
Yeah.
And then we got to the parking lot, and he cried.
Sure.
But what it did was for me, I wanted him to respect the process, and I know that he's young. You don't think maybe that way at that time. But it's not all roses, right? Like, they're going to fail. Most of them are going to fail way more times than they're going to succeed. And it's how you, getting cut isn't failure. Getting cut there can be a whole bunch of moving parts, especially when you're young. The reason can be, whatever, politics.
Sure.
I mean, we all talk about that.
Yeah.
But how are you going to handle it? What are you going to do about it? Are you going to sit around all year and complain to the board and bitch at every parent that you see and, talk about what, or are you just going to be the best MD player you can be? Come back next year.
Yeah.
And see how it goes. And then he ended up, working his way through that, and he ended up being captain there, and he was captain at Oak Ridge High School. And, some kids that he grew up with that looked like they were going to be elite, fizzled out, and then other ones that were underdogs turned out to be great players.
Yeah.
And it's the same with his baseball. There's a whole whack of those kids that came through that are playing university baseball, and they're going all over the place. And a lot of them were underdogs when they were young too.
Yeah.
So, it's all how you handle it.
Yeah.
And, don't have your kid, embarrassed. Don't embarrass your kid. Don't have your kid on pins and needles at the hotel or at the rink because he doesn't know what mom or dad are going to say to the coach, or yell at the ref, or just do something that's going to make him feel uncomfortable.
That's great advice. Just like as a parent, just don't embarrass your kid, right? Like
don't embarrass
really,
your kid.
Yeah.
Like don't
simple.
Imagine like yesterday here at your hockey school, my kid forgot his lunch. Okay. Like, so I got to drive him, I'm doing the carpool thing in the morning, and I drop the kids here and go home. I find his lunch he's going into grade 7. I'm not real happy about it. Okay. Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Right. I got a day. I got a lot of stuff. I got to take care.
Tighten it up, buddy.
Oh, please. So, I got to drive his lunch down here. Well, they're on rink 4 or wherever they're here. And no other parents are in the building. Right. But I walk in and they're working out, and I've got his lunch. The room's locked. I don't know where I should drop off this lunch. And I knock on the glass when he's like doing his line rushes or whatever. I knock on the glass. I'm like, where? And he's embarrassed that I'm knocking. I'm embarrassing him now, right?
Yeah.
Like, get out of here. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Dad? Like, don't knock on the glass. Like, don't interrupt me. And I'm thinking to myself, what's wrong with this picture, kid? Like, you forgot your lunch.
Yeah.
I need to know where to do this. But to the point is that embarrassed him.
Yeah.
So imagine if you're in the grill of the coach,
right,
or you're losing your mind in the stands. All I was doing was dropping off his lunch.
Yeah,
and he was already embarrassed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, I don't want you to think that we, or me especially, because I'm very competitive. Like, I was a snapper head growing up as a player. Like, but times were different back then.
For sure,
we fought, and things were, and I got beat up more often than anything. But I showed up. You know what I mean? Because if I was, it was just the way I was programmed.
Yeah.
But we weren't perfect parents, and I learned along the way as well. I did some things that, in reflection, that I wish I would have done a little bit differently at times. But at the end of the day, I always knew that because I could still converse with the coach, or I still had a relationship with the parent group or whatever else, that what made me feel maybe uneasy wasn't as crazy as what other people were doing, or people didn't perceive what we were doing or how we were doing it to be out of the box.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just treat your kid the way you think you would have liked to been treated with his coaching staff and that at the same age. And that's hard to do because times have changed.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot of different things now.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't feel right in the pit of your stomach when you're walking to your car with your 8-year-old, your 10-year-old, it's definitely not feeling right to them.
Yeah, no, and I think as a parent, I'm old, but my kids are young. But I think, you don't know, like there's no recipe book. There's no perfect way to raise your kid. You just do the best you can. And yeah, you're going to have snap times. You're going to have times where you maybe said something you shouldn't have said to your kid or to a coach or whoever that is, right? But at the end of the day, to your point, it's like, just make sure that you're not embarrassing your kid, that you're doing what's best for your kid, and put your kid in uncomfortable situations, meaning shaking a coach's hand that you're 7 years old, 8 years old, just got cut. Last thing you want to do is go see that coach, let alone shake his hand and say, thank you for cutting me, right? But I think all these times when kids get cut from AA, AAA, A, doesn't matter what it is, I always tell parents, like, that's an opportunity. Mm-hmm. So there's a reason you got cut. Yeah, if it's political, no problem. But if you're the top 3 or 4 or 5 players in that age group, you wouldn't have got cut. Mm-hmm. So how do we get to that point? If you really want it, little Johnny, and you really want to be the AAA player, then you got to start working on this or this or this. And that's on you,
I mean, you probably see it more often than I do with the kids you work with. I'm out of touch with it, but one of the things that's always fascinating to me is that if a kid gets cut out of the AAA Junior Knights program, and let's just say he's 13 years old, okay, and the parent believes he's good enough to play AAA, they put him in a car and they drive him to Chatham or Sarnia or or here on Perth or whatever it is, or Waterloo. I don't care.
For sure.
My take on that is out of sight, out of mind. Like, as soon as you leave because you think the grass is going to be greener somewhere else, understand that there's pockets of the world, kids don't have that choice. What happens if you're playing in Sudbury, like where we grew up? If you're playing in Sudbury, like, where are you going to go? You get cut by the AAA Junior Wolves or whatever. Like, you're going to go to the second team and you're going to work as hard as you can to get on that team, right?
For sure, yeah.
But you're not going to go up to Valley East and play up there. You're not going to go to North Bay and play over there. There's a reason, there's a process, there's an organization in place. Don't leave it because you got cut. Make them recognize you because they're going to need APs. There's going to be injuries or sickness and all that other kind of stuff. Why can't you be the first guy that they call up? Prove them wrong internally instead of going away.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is I think that a lot of that's driven by the parents, obviously, right?
For sure.
You know, like my young guy's 7 and he just started playing hockey last year and he's already, hey, Dad, I want to play more competitive. I'm like, but you can't stop one way. Like, we're not playing more competitive. Learn how to stop that way. Like, work on it.
Yeah.
And when you learn how to, you know, become better at what you're doing, then maybe we'll look at playing more competitive, you know? And for me, selfishly, I don't want him to play competitive. I don't want to be at the rink 3-4 days a week with him, you know, on top of work and my daughter, like, you know what I mean? So my wife and I are like, no, you're going to play this, you know, have fun, develop and, you know, enjoy it. But at the end of the day, like if he does want to play, you know, more elite hockey one day, or my daughter wants to do something more elite, no problem. But you got to show us that you want to do that you're going to put the work in. Now they're young. So for right now, it doesn't matter. But when they're 11, 12, 13 and they get cut and I see my son skateboarding and swimming all summer, no problem. Enjoy it. But what do you expect? Like there's kids out there that are 12, 13 that have spent the whole summer playing soccer, working out, shooting pucks, doing all this stuff. And you're, you know, hanging with your buddies, no problem. That's great. But what do you expect? And
everybody, that's what I mean. They're going to get to a stage where they're going to make the choice either for you as a parent or for us.
Sure.
As parents, or just on their own period. I mean, you know, it's going to be undeniable. It's going to be one way or the other. Like it'll happen, you know, one day that's just going to happen. And, you know, I always look at the European model, and this is one of the things we're really fortunate to be able to do in my job, is that you'll interview kids from Europe. Obviously, you know, if you look at the Scandic companies or countries like Sweden, you know, Finland, like these places that have really had a strong push. Yeah. Developing a lot of really good players lately, you know, we've got some in our organization. When you interview them at the combine or you get to know them through the process of, you know, scouting them, some of them didn't start playing travel hockey till they were like 10 over there. And you ask them why. Well, my dad was a dog sledder, professional dog sledder, or, you know, I was playing bandy on the side, or like they got games over there, handball. They got all this stuff over there that, you know, the point is that they did a whole bunch of different things up until a certain point, and then they subconsciously or consciously, consciously said, you know, I really want to just play hockey. You know? But they did a whole bunch of things up until, and then between the ages of 10 and 16, now you're interviewing him and he's sitting in front of you, he's, you know, 18 years old, and he's been living away from home for the last 2 years on his own. He's got his own flat. He's cooking his own meals. He's doing, because he had to move away from his wherever they were to play for Malmo or whoever he's playing for, but they live in their own apartment. You know, think about that for a second.
Just unheard of with some of our.
Can you imagine moving a kid in London, moving to, you know, Quinty up Ottawa area and living in their own apartment, cooking, taking care of their schooling, you know, playing, training. Come on, man. Like, it's just different.
For sure it's different. Yeah. It's a way different, way different mentality. And you're right. When you start talking about the European, you know, that, and their model too, a lot of them, like one thing I love about like some of those small countries is they really hammer sport in school. You know, like they have good athletic programs in school. They have sports specific programs for kids at that high school age. Like we're just starting to get that stuff now. And
so, you know, they over there would have 2 different classifications in certain pockets, 2 different classifications of a high school. One would be called a sports school, and the other one would just be an academic school. Yeah. And the sports school lends itself towards exactly what you're just saying, like not only the academics, but they really push sport. So, you know, there's a variety of things involved in that, soccer, you know, hockey, different things that they have over there. But they push it and they dedicate, you know, half a day to it. Yeah. You know, it seems like we're starting to get there with certain school scenarios here. Yeah. But I don't know enough about it to
we are. So just to give a bit of an idea, like in kind of, even in Canada, let's say, like out west, tons of sports in school, like a lot of Hockey Canada programs.
Remember when we were growing up, Notre Dame Hounds in Saskatchewan.
Exactly, right? Now there's a lot more prep schools, but I mean, still that's like 15, 17, 25, 40 grand to go, right? So that's a little different, and a lot of parents can't afford that. In London, they just introduced a model now where it's, you know, let's call it for hockey, maybe 6-7 grand, which isn't terrible, but you have hockey twice a week on the ice, you work out 3 days a week, and it's all in your program. It's an ASAD. It's called ASAD. And it's awesome. First year, last year, it was great. It was really good, and kids can get a credit for it. And then they do an online class and they go back to their school. So they can still do cross-country running or be on the school board. So it's great. Like, but man, that's like 20 years too late to me. Now it's nice that it's getting implemented and hopefully it starts to grow and kids get into it. But if you're a wrestler or a skateboarder or a snowboarder, you can do this program, go on the hill for half a day, and then go to class. And, so it's
fantastic.
It's great. Yeah. And I think it's going to be good for hopefully developing better athletes and, and obviously getting them to, and what was the motivating factor for you? Was it going to math class, or was it maybe not being able to play hockey because you didn't go to math class? That would have motivated all of us to do better in math class,
Yeah. Well, I sucked in math, but you just hit it right on the head. I went to school so that I could play the sport.
Right. Yeah. Because your parents probably wouldn't let you play the sport if you failed out of school.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's upbringing is different. But yeah, I think generally speaking, that's pretty fair. I know for us as parents now, and I'll give you another example, like baseball scholarship for Kian, he earned a certain percentage, or he was offered a certain percentage to go to the States. There's this misleading, there's a misconception out there that athletes in Canada, let's just say London, because we have tons of great athletes here, kids. Yeah. When you hear it come out of their mouth that I want to go to the States on a scholarship. Well, that's great. That on the entry level, that sounds like a positive and good. Set the goal. I hope it happens. But don't set the goal with the thought in mind that you're getting a full scholarship to go to the United States. The models change down there.
Yeah.
There's too many good athletes in state. There's a lot of moving parts. So there's a cost associated to going down there. You're not going to get, in most cases, 100% scholarship. Yeah. So there's ways to earn it, So what we tell our kids growing up, and we said it the same thing to Kian, was you better establish this GPA and work hard at school, or else we're not doing this.
Yeah.
And so when you're in grade 9, 10, one thing I would tell any parent if I was sitting in a and I've done lots of talks, it matters right in grade 9, it matters. They're taking your GPA and your core course marks into account right from grade 9, and it's affecting how much money you're getting on the other end when you actually become a scholarship athlete. It affects it. There's ways to earn more money once you get there. And in our situation, one thing that I'm really proud of for our kid, and more proud that he could just do it, was that he had a certain percentage when he hit campus. He made the honor roll last year, and he got bumped. It's called stackable. Now, instead of just being athletic money, admissions take pride in their honor roll students. They give him a whole whack more money. Now he's a lot closer to 100%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you don't take the way we just described it before, where the sport, I would go to math class so I could play hockey.
Yeah.
Eventually, you've got to go to math class to get a 90 so that you get more money on the other end to make it more worth,
Totally. And I think a lot of parents, the misconception is, my cousin just got a full scholar or got a scholarship to the States. Oh, wow, 100%. Like, it's not like that anymore. It's 80%, 90%. They're paying some good money to go down there. But the academic money that schools have is a huge pot. The athletic is way smaller. So for coaches recruiting a kid like Kian, they're like, man, his grades are decent. He could, potentially qualify for a little bit more money down the road. That's huge. Like, they can pull out of that academic money rather than just all their athletic money. And I think it's a big draw card. But a lot of these parents aren't setting their kids up like that in grade 9, right?
No, well, they're not, and they're still caught up in the whole. Little Jimmy's just the best player, and he's going to get rewarded at the end of the rainbow with whatever because he's the best player. It absolutely doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
absolutely doesn't work like that. By the way, when you get there, they're all great players. So what's going to set you aside from somebody else, if you're looking from the funding perspective, is exactly that. How well did you do in the classroom?
Yeah.
Trust me, no coach, I don't care how good you are, if you want to be a scholarship athlete, no coach wants to be chasing you down to make sure your GPA is on level so that you're qualified to play every weekend.
Right.
Because you have to meet certain standards.
Yeah.
Nobody, I don't care how good you are, no coach in his right mind wants to be chasing you to make sure you're going to class.
Yeah.
Because now, he's battling and he's got 25 other guys he's got to take care of.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you're out the door, buddy. Like, see you later. You're too much maintenance.
Yeah. Now, getting into the scouting a little bit, when you're out, obviously you see, it's insane the amount of hockey games that you watch, obviously. Right. So I'm sure sometimes it's just a big blur of hockey players skating around. But for you, obviously you got to be dialed in and you know who you're looking at and guys you're looking at. What are some of the main things when you're watching kids play and you're kind of looking up, kind of putting your list together? The high-end kids are the high-end kids. We all, I could be a scout right now and figure out who the high-end kids are, look at a couple of pieces of paper and know. But for you, you know, I think a lot of the scouts hang their hat on that 6th round pick, like a Brownie. Those guys that are like later guys that, man, we got to steal in the 3rd round. We wanted this kid. He was one of our higher end kids that we wanted. We stole him in the 3rd round. We're pumped. How do you differentiate from these kids? Like the high end kids are the high end kids, but those other kids and the meat potato kids, how do you kind of pick these 4 kids are the kids I want to get in these next couple rounds?
Well, we were talking about it earlier. So, you know, it's interesting though, because there are teams that do miss on their 1st round picks, you know, like, and there's a variety of reasons why that happens. And I'm not throwing darts at anybody in the scouting fraternity because everybody works really hard at it.
Yeah.
But you have to stay true to certain principles in what you're looking for in a player. And so if you had some bullets that you were, so some bullet points that you were looking for, obviously, you know, skill, hockey sense, speed, you know, the skating is so important nowadays.
For sure. Yeah.
And that's delicate because, some kids, you look at their stride, and you're an expert at it. I'm not, but I've been around the game long enough to look at the mechanics of a kid and say, I don't think there's really so much wrong with his stride. I think that maybe we have to look at his body chemistry to see where his training's at, because, you know, his edges look pretty clean, but he lacks explosiveness. You know, he's short legging on the left side or something like that. Like there's things that you look and you're like, it's not a bad stride, but there's something missing. You know, can you fix it? You know, and so you kind of dissect that. But going back to it, you know, skill, speed, determination, character. Like you have to have the character because every day is a hard day. There are no easy days in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
You know, there just aren't.
No.
You know, you can be the best player in the world, and if you take a day off in that league, you're not even close to what, you know, what's going on that day with other people on the ice. Like Connor McDavid has bad days.
For sure.
You know, he could have a game where he's buzzing up and down the ice and he's doing what he does with his speed, but he ends up -3 and, you know, he's 40% on the draws or whatever else. That's a bad day. A fan doesn't look at it like that, but we, you know, we dissect it. We are fortunate in Florida that we have guys on our roster that we drafted anywhere from the 3rd to the 7th round. You know, we got 1st and 2nd round, but I mean the 3rd to 7th round guys. And even before my time, Scott Luce was the director before I was there. And I worked under Scott. Those guys did a hell of a job. They did a great job. And I was in Nashville. I came over there, and, you know, Vincent Trocheck's a 3rd round pick.
That's crazy, man.
He's in, you know, led the Ontario League in scoring.
Yeah.
He's a 90-point guy in the NHL. He's a bulldog, though. Like, he is an absolute pain in the ass. Like every day, there's no off switch for Vinny. Yeah. And that's what makes him a great player. So after the obvious, you gotta skin it back, and you gotta convince yourself that they're gonna be able to put in the work. And, you know, what type of a human being are they away from the ice? You know what I mean? Like, have they been a good student? What type of structure? You know, you talk to the coaches about, you know, their leadership capabilities. Are they coachable? And you have to be that can be delicate too, because if you get a coach who's got a, you know, shine on for a guy or not, you have to be able to cut through that. But guys, we have like Brownie's a good example, but we have another kid, Mackenzie Weegar, who's a 7th round pick. He was like, I think the 3rd or 4th last pick of the draft. He's a full-time NHL player with us. Okay. He played in Halifax on McKinnon's team, you know, McKinnon and German's team. He was a defenseman. He was like, I think he had maybe 52 points. Don't quote me on it, in his draft or in his 2nd draft year. Like, he'd gone through.
Right.
And what's set him aside is the fact that he could always skate. He could always make a really solid first pass, and he could chip it to space. Like, his hockey IQ was good, so he could chip it to space if there was nothing there. So, like, the ice was always full ice for him. You know what I mean? He never got pigeonholed into a certain area. So his IQ, his skating, and his puck management were all qualities. When I say he was a good skater, he was one of those guys that he wide tracked, so he needed to get quicker. He needed to bring it in. He needed to get faster. You know, then he needed to get a little bit more bump and grind to his game, and he's figured all those things out. How does he figure them out? He's got character, man. He's got character and drive and focus. He wants to be something. He doesn't expect it to be given to him. And then when they get there, they don't want to give it up.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. They're not those guys that they get there and they say, I need $3 million, because he already knows he's a $1.5 million player. Like, imagine growing up and, you're saying to yourself, I'm going to be like the fourth last pick in the draft or whatever. I'm going to win a Memorial Cup in junior. Great. And I'm going to make about $1.5 to $2 million a year, and I'm going to live in Florida. Like, come on. Does it get any better than that?
It's okay.
It's pretty good.
I take it.
I take it. We would all take it, right? Yeah. But what those guys all have in common is they're winners.
Yeah.
They figured it out early.
And how deep do you dig on a guy like that? Like, would you obviously talk to the coaches and stuff, but are you guys trying to get in touch with buddies that may know him, or some junior coaches maybe coached against him back in the day, or, do you guys dig pretty good on certain guys that you're
so
really
the local scout will, like the area scout will do a lot of digging that way, and you'll find out, trust me, we know way more than what people think we know about an athlete. Like, I don't want to get too specific about it, but if you're not a good human being and you've done things and you carried yourself or made some really poor decisions, there are some poor decisions that are just, you can account for that they're young and they're growing up. Know what I mean? We've all done stupid stuff, right? Yeah. But then there's some decisions that you're thinking to yourself, like, that was a pretty well thought out decision and it was still dumb. You know what I mean? Like, there's the maturity thing, and then there's the other one. And then, you tend to steer away from those guys a little bit, because those guys are going to be either making excuses for lack of performance, or they're going to be creative enough to not perform at a certain level and have an excuse why they didn't do it.
Right.
That's just my belief. And we talked about it earlier. I like to know when I go in to see a kid play that it's been a tough day for him.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find out, but sometimes you will, and well, I'll give you an example. When I worked in the Sioux, we have a road trip every year in the Sioux right before Christmas time that takes us through like Guelph, Mississauga, whatever, Barrie, that area, the Toronto area.
Yeah.
And the reason is because we have so many kids that are from, it's a center hub for Ontario, and you're up in the Sioux, so they bring them in on the bus, and then the bus goes back, but half of them get off there. Their parents meet them there, right? How easy would it be to mail in those 2 or 3 games, before Christmas time?
Yeah.
Well, real easy, because you might not have seen your family since August or whatever, so this is a big deal, girlfriend, whatever, I don't care. You want to see those kids perform at a high level on that road trip. Tells you something about them.
For sure. Well, I mean, even if you catch a team on a 3-3 and see that Sunday game, or you catch a team that maybe that McKinnon or whoever it is just went -3, like you said, and had a terrible game the night before, how does he bounce back from that game, 100%, right?
Yeah.
And those are the games, those are that's that character kind of oozing through on some of these players for sure.
And especially with goalies too, right?
Yeah.
If we're here in London, like, London goalies don't generally have too many bad nights here in this building, but let's say they did.
Yeah.
And they're going into Sarnia on a Saturday night or whatever, and Dale and Mark decide they're going to play the same goalie the next night. And, you track them, you watch them 2 nights in a row. He crapped the bed the night before. How's he respond?
Yeah.
And
how often does it happen where you're watching, let's say, that goaltender, or a couple, a Uyghur when he was younger, and all of a sudden you're watching a game and Halifax playing Rimouski, and holy shit, who's this kid? This number 16 on Rimouski. Like,
oh yeah, it happens more often than you
some
think.
Kid off
Absolutely.
the radar pops. You're like, man, this kid made half something, and then now he's on your list a little bit. You're like, I'm going to check this kid out next time I'm watching Rimouski.
Happens frequently.
Yeah.
It really does. It really does.
Yeah.
Here's one of the things, and that's the beauty of my job, because I drop in to areas all over the world throughout the season. It's easy and I did this probably when I was in Nashville too. Like, my area in Nashville was Ontario, and then this was called the CCHA back then. It's the Big Ten now. Like, I had a certain corridor that I looked after, and I didn't travel outside of that corridor. Now I travel all over the place. I think I was probably guilty of it too. Sometimes your area scout gets more fixated on guys that he sees all the time that he's really comfortable with, and he might not, just accidentally forget about it. So when I come in now and I see, the guys that they've identified, and then a guy pops the way you just said right there, now it's like, now he's on his radar too, and it's So that happens quite frequently.
I think it's important for young players to understand this, whether you're in Bantam and midget going to the OHL draft or whatever, trying to get on a junior team. But, I remember doing this when I was young. Like I loved playing the game. I was competitive. I liked it, but a lot of times I'd play for the other team's coach. In my mind, I'm like, I'm going to show him how good I am. Or I'm going to show those college scouts that are here that are watching my winger who's real good. I'm going to show them how good I am, and kind of having that motivation to impress, because you never know who's there and you never know who's talking and who's watching. And
it just takes one, right?
Yeah.
It only takes one to give you the opportunity. And never ever underestimate. Why wouldn't you anyways, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're going to put the skates on, or I don't care what you do, like I always, if I shoot a game of pool against you at some local establishment or whatever, trust me, buddy, I don't want to lose that game of pool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because if I'm going to do it, I might as well do it.
Yeah.
It's just, but you have to be programmed that way.
For sure. And some kids aren't, right? Like you see it sometimes too, where they come out and lay an egg. And then the next time you watch them, they're good. They're real good. And they lay another egg. And you're like, what is going on? And then, they play some crap team. They get 4 points, 5 points. And, it's just, you see these kids and sometimes those kids do get picked up by teams because they got something there, right? And then they don't end up panning out, or they just don't have that drive, and it's frustrating, right?
The common denominator that we always keep coming back to, and you see it with the guys you work out with, is, the drive, the focus, the compete, if you're going to show up, you're going to skate with Dwayne Blaze. Okay. Today's you wake up this morning and you're like, oh God, I gotta go. But when you're going to skate, and for that, whatever your hour, let's call it, like I was out here yesterday watching, you do some puck drills with some of the guys over here on the big ice. And, it was interesting to watch it because a few of them got real. It was like a tip drill to a board on the net. Okay. Mm-hmm. They were cycling out of a corner and picking up pucks off the half wall and stuff like that. And so they've got spots on the board where they're going to shoot the puck, right? A couple of them got real dialed in. They were like zipping it, where the puck should go. Yeah. And then from range, the defensemen were curling out and firing it. And it looked to me like it was more like a get the puck to the net as quickly as you can, but it needed to be in an area where it'd be tippable or present a rebound. There was one or two of the guys that just kept on cycling out and just firing the puck. Like some were going over the net, some are going high. Like it's no chance that that's ever going to
translate to a goal.
Right?
For sure.
If you're going to show up and you got 30 seconds per, your turns, do it to the best of your ability every time. Don't lose focus of it. Even when you're dog tired, man, because guess what? Like if you want to win a AAA championship at the, whatever the midget, the OHL Cup. Yeah. You want to win the Memorial Cup. You want to win. I don't care where you want to win softball out in Dorchester this weekend. Like those guys are on a bender the night before, but they some way find a way to beat you. It's because they showed up and they dug in when it mattered. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I think, and that's one thing that I noticed over the years that separates the pros. And you could be a pro at 14, 15. Like we talk about this all the time. Like the pro mentality, just showing up on time, being ready, not forgetting to skate, having your skate sharp, and like all those things. But it's crazy to see even at that level, those NHL guys, the guys that are legit pros and the guys that are just kind of trying to figure it out and aren't quite there yet. And, you got an 8 o'clock session, they show up at 5 to 8. What are you doing, man?
No, it's not acceptable. No. Because, they got no time to stretch. They got no time to warm up, warm down, whatever. Roberto Luongo just retired, with us in Florida. And I got to see him. And before that, we had Jaromir Jagr for a couple of years. These guys are legends, right?
Unbelievable.
So I'll start with the Yags. Like when we brought him in, and I was down watching, whenever I was in Florida, just watching, game day skate or just skates, whatever the case may be. Well, Barkov was just first, second year guy then, Alexander Barkov. And he's an elite.
Hell of a player, he's
top
good,
5 centerman in the league. There's Jagr. In like an hour and a half before practice, getting proper stretching, proper prep, all that. And he's an odd duck. Like, so he does like the weighted shorts and, like he's got stuff going on that's really archaic, right? But what does he do, man, at the end of practice? Like he's out there, guy, he's 45 years old, and he's circling around. He's working on like, with Barkey on like power play tip stuff, like how I'm going to position my body angling wise and what, like all these little details, and he played forever and he wasn't fast but he's a big body. Yeah. But the details, right? Lou had, some injuries that it would take him all day long to get prepared properly, to get his body feeling the way he wanted it to feel, to play games last year.
It's crazy. Yeah.
all day long. Like he's in there doing, what he needed to do to get ready.
Yeah.
And these guys that you talk about show up 5 minutes before, or these young guys that think that, it's going to be a given. No way, man. It's work.
Yeah.
It is work.
Yeah. And it's those routines and not like being a pro that, and it's odd. My biggest pet peeve in hockey, especially as you get into like AHL locker rooms, NHL locker rooms, is seeing a 25-year-old. Hey, how's it going? Oh man, banged up, feeling old. Like, dude, you're 25. You're playing pro hockey. Suck it up, man. Like this is and I'm not saying pro hockey's easy. On the outside looking in, it looks like it's so easy. They travel around, they get food. It's great. They play hockey. It's a grind. Like, and the NHL schedule is unbelievably hard. Like just as far as travel and game day and no practice time hardly. It's insane. But at the same time, like whether you're working at UPS, you're a scout, whatever you're doing, like hopefully enjoy what you're doing. Hopefully enjoy. Don't be that grumpy 25-year-old that's already going to pack it in because you got a bad ankle. Like, you got to, I think at some point, you look at guys like Geiger and Long, like they still like the game. They still enjoy the game. They're 40 years old, still playing, and they're out after practice. They're still enjoying the game, that's refreshing to me. Like, I love seeing that,
Well, what do you think it means to a kid who's 20? Like we were really young then, our team. Now our core is older. They're like 24, 25, whatever they are, 26. Oh, well, 23 to 26. What do you think it means to those kids? Like, to see that, like he could easily just, okay, I'm done. I'm going to get an ice bath or whatever. I'm going to get a massage and I'm out of here because I'm 45 years old.
Yeah.
No way. Like he's in there and then he's playing pong with the guys. And you know what I mean? All that stuff. So I don't know. I think that we're all programmed differently, but once the majority of the guys, once you get there, or even in the process of getting there, like that 25-year-old you just described right there, he'd be a minority to me. He'd be a minority.
Yeah.
And you know what? His leash is going to be very short.
Yeah.
Those guys go away. Go away.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It is a grind. I got all kinds of buddies, like, your situation with how busy you are. You got a young family, your gig in Washington and stuff like that. Everybody on the outside looking in thinks you guys are very lucky, and don't ever discount it. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. Like I love my job. I truly love it,
Yeah.
But there's days where I'm traveling through Europe and, I take a red-eye flight and then I land somewhere and I got to do 2 games that day. And all of a sudden I've been up for, 18 of the last 24 hours. I'm 6 hours ahead of my time zone and my young family's at home. My little guy's sick. I've got all that kind of, I have all the same stuff going on that somebody back here has going on.
Yeah.
But I'm on the other side of the world. 2 weeks ago, my 11-year-old, something came up. He was having a sleepover party and something came up. He forgot about my time change. I was 6 hours ahead in Austria, flying home from the Lincoln turn.
Yeah.
And my phone rings in my hotel at 6 o'clock in the morning. So now I got a wake up call, but it's because back home, real life doesn't stop. He needed me for something. You know what I mean? So, it's, any of those guys that say I'm banged up, I'm sore and whatever, or if I'm complaining about jet lag or travel, and there are days that you feel like a bag of nails and you do complain about it.
Definitely.
There are those days,
and
especially if you get sick on the road or something like that. But really, who am I to, at the end of the day, I get paid very well to do something that I absolutely love to do. But it took me 13 years, Blazer, just to get there.
Yeah.
So,
just to get your foot in the door.
Just to get my foot in the door. Like the runway was pretty long just to get in there. So I value it every day.
No, and I think it's great. And I'm the same. I love my gig. I love what I do. I love coming to work here every day. And there's days that it sucks. There's days that, you get out of bed, you're like, I don't really feel like going in, like any job, right? But at the end of the day, there's 90% of the days I love. You know what I mean? It's awesome. But I really appreciate coming in. I'm going to kind of want to leave it with this, but if you had a young guy right now who's maybe 15, 16, 17, good player, but kind of like we realized at one point, I may not make the NHL as I thought I would when I was 7. What kind of advice would you give that young guy if he's like, man, I'd love to scout. I love watching games. We got some young guys that work for us that are in college right now they have an eye for, like, they're really good at like breaking down skill and things like that. And I don't know, maybe one day they'd like to get into scouting or doing something like that. But would you have any advice for them to like, start getting involved in your minor hockey system, start getting involved in junior B, make connections? Because you talk about it here, like a lot of the guys you named are guys that ended up coaching the NHL, ended up, being GMs or whatever it is. You've met guys along the way here in London or, Sault Ste. Marie that now all of a sudden, hey, how you doing? Can you give me a hand with this? And you've made those connections that they're a phone call away. And, so is there any advice you'd give guys that girls that are interested in that?
Both girls as well, because I think there's an enormous opportunity for young ladies and women to get more involved in the game. They've been knocking down barriers to get more involved, and I think there's a huge opportunity on the horizon for that.
Yeah,
I really do believe that. But the one thing I would say to anybody who loves it the way you just described it is they have to separate themselves from somebody else. So, like, if you have a counselor here at your school, and there's 4 of them, and they all think the way you just described it. One of them is going to have to separate themselves and take a little bit more of an initiative or a lead than the other guys. Just don't love it and be really good at what you might be really good at down the road.
Yeah, right.
Separate yourselves. So get involved in minor hockey. Be a mentor to some younger kids. Help you out. Learn about the business behind the scenes a little bit, but not for pay. Like, just say, I'm available for 3 extra hours on this night. Is there something I can do to help you out? I'd like to learn more. Chase pucks, hound pucks like that. When you were out on the ice yesterday, yourself and I think another instructor, if there was an extra body, to hound pucks, to make your life a little bit easier, lay the foundation for where it's going to go next. Now you got a better relationship. You're proving yourself to have a strong work ethic. You've already got the knowledge, the entry level knowledge, and the passion about it. But you have to separate yourself. That's what I did early. Like, when I figured it out, I separated myself. I took leaps. Like, I was going to do this as coach. I was going to do this at the high school. I was going to do this, and you know what I mean? Like, every step of the way, I took a leap. And it wasn't in my friendship group. Like, it wasn't in my peer group, because I still have the same buddies today that I've grown up with my whole life. But I didn't just choose to, like, when I went to the rink 7 nights a week when I was 28 or whatever, and some of them were, hockey pooling it or going to the Orr House for wings to watch a game or something like that. I didn't do that by choice. Yeah. Right. I took myself out of that. So there's going to be some sacrifice along the way, but unless you separate yourself from the crowd, sometimes you might just get caught up in the crowd.
I think that's huge. And like, even for you, if you look at your trajectory and, to get into where you are right now, I mean, you went through some of those prime years of going downtown and having fun. And, I'm thinking right away, if you're coaching Lucan or whoever you're coaching, you're at the rink till 10, 11 on a Friday or Saturday, and minor hockey still, you're at the rink 3-4 days a week for sure. And that's not the norm at that age. Like, those are fun years to just,
No, there's a lot of Joe Cool's nights that I did not partake in.
Yeah. And there's probably plenty that you did, so you're probably good. But
yeah, listen, I made up for it when I did get there. I definitely made up for last time. But
but no, I think that's good. And I think, making those, you're young, coaching junior B or junior D, junior C and junior B and stuff. And I think that is huge. And I think the biggest thing that I noticed in the NHL or the OHL is just getting connections. Because you make one, you can drop off 31 resumes, nothing, crickets. You make one phone call and all of a sudden you got an interview to maybe, help out as a part-time scout. Like, really, and it can happen that kind of quickly if you know the right people,
be respectful of the process. But I have a rule that in place for me, and it is that because I was once one of those people that like last year, we had a part-time, we had a position in Ontario open up with our organization. And naturally, I'm interviewing the candidates for that. I had over 300 people in Ontario and outside of Ontario, like people that were willing to move, all that kind of stuff. Over 300. And even if it was just like a 2-second text back, I returned a phone call, text, or email to every one of those. It took like 3 or 4 months or whatever, and you're just sitting there doing some work and you're like, oh, I got to get back to that person, but do it, do it. So if you're in a position of leadership, to get to the position of leadership, respect the process. And then when you do get there, respect the process.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's
be kind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Be kind about it. And, I'm not saying I'm the easiest boss to work for, because I'm not. Like, you don't change your stripes. You're still very competitive. You still have expectations. Still have like structure and stuff like that. But I have a lot of respect for the people that persevere.
Yeah. Now, when one of your scouts, last thing, one of your scouts, and you guys end up drafting a dog, like, does that scout hear about it for the whole year? You guys rip on him all year?
Well, it's. Well, listen, it's hockey, right?
Oh, for sure. I can just imagine. The cars going back and forth.
Listen, buddy, like, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in meetings that we can never talk about on this thing. Because that's what's the fun of the game.
It's the best, right? Man. Those are probably some of the funnest times.
They can be fun, really fun,
Yeah.
really fun. And then, it can be all out war sometimes. And then sometimes it can be uncomfortable. Yeah, we rip on each other. We rip on each other pretty good.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah. You got to keep it loose, man. It's still,
you got to enjoy it, right? If you got a good bunch of guys and, a good crew that you're working with, it makes it fun, man. Yeah, it makes it fun when you got meetings.
You don't want your guys walking on pins and needles that they can't be like that. It's hockey. We all grew up in the room.
Yeah.
Totally. Today you can't say some of the stuff and do some of the stuff we did back then.
Right.
Which is probably a good thing.
Yeah. But you can always have a team shower. Hey, boys, let's go. Good scouting meeting. Back in my room, team shower.
Off the air, we'll talk more.
Well, listen, buddy, appreciate you coming in, man. That was awesome.
Of course.
Great, man. Thank you very much.
All right.